Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Sex differences. Teenage girls who play football are twice the risk of concussion than boys, but are less likely to be removed from play after injury, study warns. Scientists reviewed data from 40,000 high school footballers. They found the risk of a concussion was 1.88 times higher for girls than boys, and male footballers were most often injured colliding with another player, and were 1.5 times more likely to be removed from play on the day of the injury. So, we know this is the case with previous football stars or soccer stars for our American cousins to then willingly donate their brains for assessment for research purposes after their passing in order to try and see the effect of not only collisions with other players but also, of course, heading the ball. And from Fallout a couple of years ago, there was the thought that maybe children, as in under the age of 18, should not actually be heading footballs because of the risk of concussions and serious brain damage that it can cause for the children, not just to that point, but actually the long-lasting, in fact permanent effects of such brain damage. And this has also been documented and is a considerable sized risk when it comes down to trying to supplement academic education with sports recreation. That, of course, the idea is that exercise helps and it shouldn't be hindering that child's development. But, believe it or not, hitting things with your head isn't very good for your brain. And the same goes for fighters, whether that be boxers or martial arts or mixed martial arts, UFC, that, again, getting hit in the head repeatedly isn't very good for your head. Funny that. So, then you get down to the sex differences between men and women, and as well between boys and girls. So as we know that men are biologically stronger than women, and therefore are less negatively affected by collisions, although that isn't deemed acceptable anymore. And given that in football, in its current layout, heading ball is perfectly fine, and that of course you're going to have collisions with other players, then this is something to take a note of. Easy outcome is, of course, to say, well, then you can't hit the ball with your head. Quite straightforward, really. You can't stop collisions with other players. Obviously, it is going to happen when you go in for a hard tackle, but nonetheless, if you just say, well, you can't hit a ball with your hand, and similarly, you can't hit a ball with your head, and then it's up to you if you wish to generate a different league in order to adopt those rules instead, and then it's up to whoever wishes to play by whichever league, and jobs are good 'un. Or of course you could just say, if you do not wish to head the ball, then don't. But that's quite straightforward. But the point is this, the point is, of course, sex differences. The point is trying to protect girls, and this is where feminists really shoot themselves in the foot, and I find it hilarious. I really, really, really do. Because what's the point? Well, the idea is to say women are having a hard time, and therefore we have to make women equal to men when it comes to outcome, not when it comes to opportunity. So they go, okay, cool, well, that's going to be pretty bloody difficult given the biological differences between men and women. And then you get someone to say, well, no, because there aren't any different, and therefore women can be just as good at men as being men. Caitlyn Jenner is an example of entirely the opposite to disprove their theory with their own reasoning. But nonetheless, cool, yeah, let's run with it. Let's just pretend it's feasible. So yes, women are supposed to be just as good at being men as men. They can do anything a man can do, and more, and they can do it better. Yes, of course. Except the idea is also to protect women, rape culture, and the like. So you've got a couple of competing points, because sure, you can construct your society in such a way, but you can't argue with nature. And that is always going to be the sticky point. That is always going to be the part where they fall down, and they are falling down in this point as well. So what are the possible outcomes? Well, one is you say, well, women are worst affected because of nature, and you can't blame straight white men for that. Okay, cool. Or there need to be different rules for women in order to protect them, as has historically been the case, that, you know, women are protected and men are expendable. and therefore we can enjoy men hurting themselves, but we're not going to encourage women to hurt themselves. As simple as that. But of course that isn't really accepted. So the key takeaway is, in order to push this message for anybody who wishes to buy into the bullshit, which is to say, yeah, sure, then why not? We can have women hurting themselves as well, if that's what equality means to you. If you want to get women to hurt each other and themselves, then hey, why don't you throw in a couple of trans competitors at the same time and just make it even better? So you've got a woman towering over a load of other females and pretending that they are also female, and causing significantly greater harm due to the biological differences between men and women. But remember that you must accept it, because women can do everything a man can do. And so I actively encourage sharing this message and hammering it home to try and say, yes, this is what is wanted. It is wanted to get women in a difficult position. Just like the whole Draft Our Daughters fake campaign about Hillary Clinton in her presidential campaign, as 4chan got the Draft Our Daughters campaign going to try and suggest that, yeah, you know, he's done his part, now it's her turn. So yeah, draft our daughters, because if he's gone to war, then she should as well. So yeah, draft our daughters. And obviously it doesn't bode very well, because the vast majority of people, again, are looking to protect women at the expense of men. That is how our civilization has got to the point at which it has gotten to. In which case, there was going to be significant pushback by simply explaining the situation and ensuring to phrase it in a way that is provocative in order to ensure the provocation of such a reaction. So keep doing what you're doing. And just for the record, when it comes down to say, concussions, we hear it banded around a lot, but, you know, what kind of issues have you got? Well, according to the NHS, signs of a concussion usually appear within a few minutes or hours of a head injury, but occasionally they may not be obvious for a few days. Worryingly, if undiagnosed, concussion can cause lifelong problems for youngsters. The NHS explains, concussion is often underdiagnosed, is serious, and if not managed correctly can lead to lifelong problems. Even though concussions are common among children/adolescents, especially if they play contact sports such as hockey, rugby or football, these injuries tend to go unnoticed since there is often no bleeding, bruising or loss of consciousness. If there are any symptoms, they are usually temporary. Most children and adolescents recover fully within 1 month of injury. Most. But again, if left undiagnosed, then you've got lifelong problems. And if you're trying to rectify what you see as inequality between people, then giving one of them a head start with a head injury isn't going to be very beneficial at all. So I'm just going to throw the one out there and let it fester. But I am intrigued to know what you guys think down below. Do you think that it's worthwhile pushing this message, understanding that people will suffer because of it, but they are the same people, of course, that choose to embrace that suffering, and therefore, if they do buy into dogma, maybe because of their parents or people they're influenced by, then they should also be held accountable for their own actions. Or if you think that's a bit too harsh, but then how are you going to stop it? What's worked so far? Either way, let me know down below. I'm always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say, and of course, as always, until next time, have a good one.